40 seconds.
How's my makeup?
Do we have a quorum?
How's the lighting?
Okay, I guess we do. He got hung up in traffic. Yeah, he did. Yeah. Jody, Lance is on his way.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the Governor's EMS and Trauma Advisory Council Education Committee meeting to order. Roll call. Jody here. Jay Cloud.
Here.
John Creech.
Here.
Robert Gonzalez. Jeff Hayes.
Here.
Greg LeMay.
Here.
Lord of the Fevers. Taylor Ratcliffe.
Here.
Oscar Salazar.
Here.
Lance Villers. Kelly Weller.
Here.
We do have a quorum. On the agenda, I noticed it says recognize and welcome new members to the committee. I take it that was just a typo, since that process will go on for the next 2 months.
You mean you don't want to welcome the new people?
I guess since we don't know who they are yet, yeah, we're going to go ahead and move past that one. I'd like to thank you all for your participation, especially on July 18th. We had about 24, 25 people there, which is really, really great, to give us a lot of input in the 2 large items on the agenda. Lots of good information from everyone there, and just thank you. Sometimes we don't always have to agree, but I really love the participation, even though in the end we have to make a decision, but it was really, really nice to have that many people there, working in concert and working together. Item 1, we're going to go ahead and take that one off, period. Item 1 should not come back anymore. I think we pretty much finished that one. Item 2, define the additional or alternative training that's required for Texas Certified EMTI, either I-85 or I-99 transition to EMT as required by National Registry of EMTs. Mr. Hayes.
Thanks, Jody. One of the things I want to remind everybody about is the declaration in the state as well as at the National Registry level is that if you took the I-85 course and are EMT intermediate under the I-85 curriculum, you basically have to retest your skills, take the written National Registry exam to be able to be certified in Texas as an advanced EMT. I-99, you're golden. You're okay. You just have to maintain your CE if you maintain your National Registry. The key point is maintaining your National Registry. If you're not pursuing or maintaining National Registry, that does not apply. You just maintain your certification through the state of Texas as you normally do. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Committee, thoughts, comments? Any public comment?
I'd like to thank Mr. Hayes for bringing this to everyone's attention and following through with this and announcing it and making sure that we're all aware, because a lot of us didn't even recognize, and I think that we could have really caught some EMS people unaware.
Any public comment? Leon Charpentier, good morning.
Good morning, Judy. How are you?
Great, thanks. Good to see you.
Of course, I knew all that. Everybody knew what the transition course was all about, how to change it. But what are we putting forward out to the legislature for changing the name? What's Texas going to do?
That's a decision that I believe we've looked at this year to decide what we need to do and go to that legislative session. We also need to take a look at it in Texas to see exactly what we're going to need to do as well, probably starting at the November meeting.
Okay, guys, so we're only, whatever it is, 100 days away and legislation starts. Okay.
Judy, you want me to respond?
Please.
So from a legislation standpoint, I don't know of any plan on opening up the legislation at this time. But as we are going to redraft the rules, and I don't know this will fly past legal, if you would read the draft that I've been working on, it will say it'll define the intermediate or EMT intermediate, and it'll say the last sentence will be is sometimes referred to as an advanced EMT, and then it'll be a definition very similar for advanced EMT, and it'll say sometimes referred to as an EMT intermediate. And that may be a stopgap approach. I don't know if legal will buy off on that, but I think we need to do something to stop some of the confusion. So that's my early thoughts on this. I can't say it's going to be the end result, but I think it's an easy fix until we open up the law again and add in the advanced EMT as a defined practitioner in Texas.
Okay. Leon, did that give you some more?
I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to recognize it somehow, and we understand.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
One of the things too, Mr. Schmieder, we have to be careful, and I realize I'm preaching to the choir here, but one of the things you have to be careful is we don't jam up providers. Because whatever the state decides, and our legislators, our illustrious legislators decide how that's going to play out, is that if it is retained as an intermediate, you can jam up providers across the state based on what certification level they have. So I applaud you for putting that statement in there to clarify that, because if you don't, you could have some EMT intermediates that hanging in the wind.
Fully agree. and I'm not so sure it's a problem for the intermediate
as much as the advanced. Correct.
Because that doesn't exist.
You're absolutely correct.
At this time.
I stand correct.
And let me just make it really clear that as we'll be talking more and more about rules at the next meeting and over this next year. I mean, we're going to have a rule packet. There is no doubt about it. We've been doing a lot of work on it internally. But it will be very vetted through the system, and everyone will have a look at it so that if we miss something, all of our eyes will be looking at it to make sure it's right.
Great, thank you. Brian?
Good morning, if I haven't had a chance to say it to you already this morning. Just to be perfectly clear on this, because I did miss the workshop and I apologize for that, there's not going to be a step down in the level of certification when we change to AEMT, because currently AEMT does not include advanced airway skills like we had discussed in previous meetings. So the way I see it, and I may be misunderstood, there is a difference between an EMT intermediate in Texas and what nationally is said as an AEMT. If we do change this to AEMT, that can lead to a huge mass confusion to people of their level of skill once they do try to go outside the state. So I don't know if there was any discussion at the last workshop on that, but we do need to make it clear that an EMT intermediate in Texas is AEMT plus advanced respiratory skills, from what I understand. And I just wanted to make that clarification and find out if there was any change in the committee's opinion on that.
And we get that. It will require additional education so that the advanced EMT does have that advanced airway module part of the course. Once they leave Texas, if they go to Kansas as an advanced EMT, they may not be allowed to use that skill there. The same thing as our other practitioners who have had other skills that the doctor allows them. We're in a unique position, as you know, in Texas because of delegated practice, where we can actually expand a lot more than most states can do. So, I mean, they'll still be an advanced EMT going to someplace else, but they'll be limited on the skills they can do.
But there's no push in Texas as far as the rules go to change the rules that advanced airway will still be a part of our AEMT or AEMT intermediate curriculum.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything like that.
And then has there any?
Yeah, it's in the law.
So that's not going to change.
That's
What I want to make sure.
If it's opened up, the legislature could do anything to it.
Okay.
Never mind.
I'm not worried about that.
There's no interest on us on changing.
The other thing that I'd have to ask is that we had also discussed about the testing level. Since we were going to go to an AEMT type test through National Registry, these people aren't being tested on the advanced airway skills. Is there going to be anything on the behalf of the state of Texas to move forward to have our guys that are going to be intubating people, doing advanced airway in the field, to be tested over that type of skill before they move on to EMT intermediate certification?
We haven't had that discussion, but I think that really will probably fall to the medical director or to the service that's going to be hiring.
Right, that would be my opinion, is that the final skills verification and competency standard is the responsibility of the provider and their medical director, not the
Well,
institution.
another option is you can put it, I know you probably don't want to hear this, but you can put it on the program before they're released out to go take their test. to verify those skills. And there is a medical director with the program that can verify those skills also.
And I think most of our
So-
Texas-based educational programs would probably continue to do that. I don't anticipate that.
I'm sure they do, but that was one of the questions that came up because in the AMT criteria, you're not tested over it.
Correct.
And we were looking for a way to say, all right, well, we're not just turning these guys loose because the school said so without some sort of verification. That's all I was asking. Thank you.
That answer your question, Brian? Great. A lot of the AEMT, I-85, I-99, it's not controversy, it's just trying to get it all together. Has to go through dishes, has to go through rule, and will also enjoin the medical directors. So, anything else on this one? Hey, Dudley.
Just real quick, we talked about this reviewing the GETAC strategic plan document in the EMS committee. And I'd just like to introduce it here real quick. I think we may have talked about it a year or two ago as well. But if there are folks in the room who think that we need to go to the legislature and are going to work to go to the legislature to change the name of our certifications in Texas, I would like everybody to entertain the thought of not just changing them to what everybody else is calling them today, but looking a little bit further towards the future. We have a little bit of confusion in our industry. It's even more so today because we have EMTI, EMT, EMT, EMTB. It's confusing for us. We live in the industry. But we also have a problem with the general public, and they don't really know an EMT versus a paramedic. And so we're always confounded about what to call ourselves. Do we call ourselves medics? Do we call ourselves paramedics? Well, they're just a basic. They're not really a paramedic. I can't call them a paramedic. We get into this whole thing. If you look at other avenues of healthcare, it really doesn't matter how much school you go to after you get the MD behind your name. You're a doctor, and all of society knows what a doctor is. They know they specialize in different things. It's a doctor. Same with nursing, but not with us. We have, since the dawn of our existence, have divided ourselves up in these little subgroups. And there's a move afoot internationally that is starting to gain a little traction here in this country to rename what we are and to call everybody in our industry paramedics. The public understands paramedics, and it's a nice nomenclature we can use. It's going to be hard for those old far guys like me who've been a paramedic for a long time. But instead of having EMT, paramedic, EMT paramedic, all of that, we just go to paramedics. What we now call an EMT basic would be hang on, let me get the name, because I always forget it, would be primary care paramedic. The next level up would be intermediate care paramedic. And then the next level paramedic that we call today would be paramedic, and then advanced care paramedic would be the status above that for your critical care paramedic and that type of thing. But we're all paramedics. Society could then, in our country, could start calling us paramedics. And it would mean that for everybody, not just a group of people, and we wouldn't get caught up in these great PR moments with the public trying to explain the difference between an EMT and a paramedic. Canada is moving towards that. There's some European countries moving towards changing those names. And so if we're going to go to the legislature instead of having to go twice, I'd at least like to entertain some discussion with the groups trying to do that to say maybe we leapfrog over this current confusion mess of EMT, AEMT, and all that, and just see if we can't push ourselves straight to paramedic.
Committee comments? Any more general comment on item 3? I'm sorry, 2? Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 3, review the community health curriculum for advanced practice paramedic, advanced community paramedic, and consider recommendations for its adoption in Texas. Let me just give you a summary, and then Jay, I'm gonna let you take it from here over what we did in Austin on the 18th. Jay and the task force met a couple of times, and they have worked out, and let me just say this for anyone who wasn't here, we are 3 to 5 years away from having anything done. Okay, I don't want anybody, I know that if you read the agenda, it says review for its adoption. We're nowhere close to its adoption. We're 3 to 5 years away, so anyone that was worried about that can take a deep breath as we move through the process. But they've met. Jay has moved his email address because there were so many people who were interested. He had to move it. No, not really. Jay actually moved. But if you're interested in working on this task force, and any and everybody in this room, not in this room, anybody in this state, is welcome to be a part of this, because we want the participation, and realize that we are in a, again, 3 to 5 year at least process to get this through. There'll be nothing ready for legislation this session, maybe not even next one, because when we vet this and we put this one out, we really want this one to be solid. Look at the discussion of adding pharmacology, operations, history, regulation, home care, pharmacodynamics, physiology, and making sure that those are some bases. We also had some discussion from Dr. Radliff looking at this to put in some modules and tiers to see how those would actually work, to give people some flexibility, especially those in our rural and frontier areas, to give them some flexibility if they choose to use any of this, and basically to help them. We also got some great feedback, and I want to publicly thank Joe and Brett for being there. And it's always helpful when we have one of the state reps there. As we run off on one of our wild goose chases every now and then, they can bring us back to center or give us a regulation or give us the rule on why we can or why we can't do something, and that is extremely helpful. One of the things that I've asked Jay and others to take a look at is that Joe and Brett advised us that there are 16 current curriculums in the state that are being used for, and call it whatever you like. Again, we're not in the name yet, but advanced practice or advanced community, that there are 16 agencies, departments, curriculums using those in the state. We're putting invitations out to all 16 of them to say, would you please bring what you have to the table and let us take a look at it, so that we can find the commonalities in those 16. Brett was able to give us a list of all the ways. And the one thing that I really liked about the list, Brett, and thank you very much, was it was pretty all-encompassing all over the state, from the Valley to West Texas to East Texas to Central Texas to North Texas, to kind of give us a flavor of what's being done in North Texas and South Texas and East Texas and the Panhandle, and what people's needs are, because the whole idea behind this, if we create this, is to take care of not only the needs of the provider, but most of all to take care of the needs of the patients that we serve. So taking a look at that. As we move forward in this, we want to involve the Medical Directors Committee and the EMS Committee. Right now, really don't think we have that much to actually share. We have a lot, but we're going to have to vet a lot of this through. I think most people are kind of looking at this, and this group is more like postgraduate paramedic, to make it voluntary. We've still got some definitions and goals that we need to go through. I know that Joe's met with some people nationally who are looking at the same things we are, trying to figure out which way we go, what works, and what works best. So there's a draft of 2 different documents, and I'm going to give you one, Joe. Can we post this, or would you rather have the link?
You're asking me.
Yeah, you're right. Jane, are you here?
Starla is who we want. Let me find out.
Okay, and get this one to her, because this will be a growing document. This is the first one, and let me thank Jay and Kelly both for their assistance, because I think it's a pretty good first 2 of 1,000 pages. No, that's 6 of 1,000.
That here, or do you just want
1,000 pages. I don't have it on my. Yeah, that's why I said if we post it, because this document will be up forever. Starla, would you rather have this document electronically to be posted, or you want a paper copy to scan?
No, electronic.
Okay.
We'll put it in our newsletter.
Okay.
And make it a permanent link there that you can just go right to.
Perfect. Did everybody hear that? They're going to put it in the newsletter and make it a permanent link. So from now on, you'll have access to this document, and as it grows and grows and grows and grows, we'll have the ability to share that. Thank you. There's community health paramedic as far as proposed curriculum, looking at the objectives, looking at the curriculum title, the sequence and scope. And under sequence and scope, there was a lot of discussion on 5 different areas. The objective of this proposal is to develop and design an educational curriculum for the community health paramedic operating within a framework of a mobile integrated healthcare system within the state of Texas. Proposed working title, let me emphasize working title, is Curriculum for the Education of the Community Health Paramedic. The sequence currently looking at 5 different areas, and that's disease and epidemiology, pathophysiology, assessment, management, and clinical and field experience. And the ones that we've been able to look at so far, those seem to be commonalities. And we're looking at disease and epidemiology past what you would get in paramedic school. So again, this was, unless someone has done something within their curriculum, we're looking at pathophys and disease and epidemiology at the point of being able to make decisions, and being able to make those decisions many times as we do now without the support of a physician directly, but much more in-depth pathophys, looking at assessment, doing what needs to be done for assessment, and then for clinical field experience, which we'll get to later to figure out where we need to go from there. That was one document. And then the second one is the mobile community healthcare and community health paramedic, where Jay and the group started to work on definitions. And again, this list will grow and we'll go through that. So Jay, all yours.
Thank you, Jody. Good morning. Let me clarify some things, and if you're unfamiliar with the reason this has come up, we would like to establish a basement or a starting point for all community health paramedics or mobile integrated healthcare involving EMS. We would like to establish a basement or starting point for that education, so that someone at one location doesn't have a 6-hour course or 8-hour course and say, now you're a community health paramedic, go do what you need, and somebody else doesn't wind up putting them through the equivalent of medical school. This is not designed to be limiting. The concept is let's see what is the minimum that we recommend that we do, and exactly what is this this community health paramedic or this mobile healthcare paramedic. That's the concept behind it. As Jody said, please understand, this is not designed to make something happen in the next few weeks, few months, or even a year. This is easily 3 to 5 years down the line, easily. But we need to start somewhere. And if we don't take an initiative and set up something, I'm afraid that others may do it for us, or it may be snatched away from us. And so that's the concept behind this. We're not saying that everyone should be certified. We're not trying to create another card. We're still in the exploratory phase as to what should it be and where do we go from here. That we have a wonderful opportunity here. This opportunity is that we can be active in establishing something pretty much new within our profession. There are other states that have done similar things, and this gives us an opportunity to actually take this and run with it. By no means are we trying to establish a one-size-fits-all situation. Dr. Ratcliffe brought up a great point on the 18th of July, that we have like a core or simple basic fundamentals module. And then after that, each service builds off of that with what is necessary for their service. Brian, I think you have a need for diabetic, I believe it was, in your service area. Obviously, you would want to add a module that really focused on that. So that's, and somebody else might need congestive heart failure. So that's obviously where we would go with this. This is still evolving. There are some wonderful definitions that are out there that I'm looking at back and forth, and we're trying to see what's going to fit best, what's going to be what we would recommend that we do. The contact hours that I have seen have varied from anywhere from 48 hours of lecture/lab to 96 or 120 hours. As Jody said, the informal sampling of what these courses are throughout the state and actually throughout the nation, there are some common ground there's some common ground among these courses. And I think that's a good building point for us. There's always a question of what do we do for delivery for these courses, especially the folks in frontier and rural Texas. What do we do? With today's technology, in addition to face-to-face, obviously we have remote live broadcast, remote live videos, Skype, high-fidelity simulation, research, presentations, video, video viewing, podcasts. There's any number of delivery methods that this can be done. And what works, when one service gets a good system working, there's nothing wrong with sharing it among our services, because we're all here for that one outcome. And this is not designed to take the medical directors out of the loop. This is designed to work with the medical directors and to work with all of us. Some of the things that Jody has already talked about, that we've talked about, that came up, a significant pharmacology course. Many of us are pretty sharp on pharmacology, but this needs to go above and beyond the standard pharmacology for paramedic. This needs to go above and beyond for assessment. We need to take that next step up with those folks. This is not meant to be only taught in a community college setting, but it certainly should be taught at that level of education requirement, meaning that people who do this, I foresee they should be folks who are sharp enough that they can comprehend all the intricacies of it. You want to have any questions or comments? Sir?
Yeah, Jay Barkley, North Channel EMS. I've actually looked into
The people don't like to hear you.
We want everybody to see your face and hear your voice.
Jay Barkley, North Channel EMS. On community paramedicine, there was a very good, at the Eagles Conference 2 years ago, presentation of this. I'm going to disagree with Jay a little bit. I think we're behind the 8 ball. I think we need to be moving a little faster with this. From what I understand and what I've looked into since is the Affordable Health Care Act could also impact the need for these. If I'm not mistaken, and I could very well be, our reimbursements could be tied to follow-up by the agency that transported the patient after they're discharged. And if that's the case, and that comes into play, 3 to 5 years is a little long. Maybe we should think about picking up the pace on this, because I think it's more important than to take that long. That's all I'm going to say.
Very good point. And you are correct. The Affordable Care Act does address issues with follow-up. Specifically, if someone is readmitted within a certain time frame for the same complaint, there are some issues in funding there. Another part of what we would see with this type of profession, or with this portion of the profession, I should say, that other places are doing. When someone is discharged from the hospital, that they have worked with, follow up with them, make sure they did get their prescriptions filled. This serves multiple functions for us. This helps cut down on those frequent flyers. That's part of the concept is if we can identify the frequent flyers, maybe just all they need is a couple of visits. This helps cut down on those. This gives us the ability to actually check on someone within some time frame of discharge from a hospital or from a physician's office. It's designed to help us become, I hate to use the word efficient, but essentially trying to change the efficiency of us. Be preemptive with things. I don't know how many of you folks are having to deal with horrible hospital situations right now in the Houston area. I'm right out at Deer Park, which is on the east side of Houston. In our area right now, at any given time, the hospitals are just at saturation point in the ER. And I'm sure that there are other places in the state that are the same. This kind of helps us, if we can start eliminating some of those folks that right now we take to the ER, this could help us reduce that ER saturation a little bit, and that kind of solves a lot of problems for us as well. We're not having to say, well, this is the best hospital, but they have no ICU beds right now, or they're on internal disaster because they have no beds whatsoever. So that does kind of give us some leeway there. Any other questions or comments?
Joe, could you ask Darla to step back in? I need her to pull up the strategic plan, if you would.
Sure, sir.
Somebody. Starla.
Did you get everything you need?
Yeah.
Okay. The first thing I want to say, and I've worked a little bit with Jay on this, and I understand where we're trying to go. I'm not against trying to further the practice of paramedicine. I totally agree with that. I would love to see us have an advanced practice paramedic, a level above our regular paramedic, because I think it furthers our industry. I really do. One of the problems I do have is attaching it to community medicine. And the reason I say that is because there's such a wide gamut of not only capability, but needs of the different communities around, that it's going to be very, very, very hard to narrow it down to a certain set of aspects that you have to have in order to be a community paramedic. And we've talked about that. However, the point that I wanted to bring up is there's nothing stopping anybody in this room right now from creating a mobile integrated healthcare community paramedic system. And so an accelerated timeline for something like this, anything else, you don't need to wait for this. You can do something in your area right now. You have delegated practice, you need to work with your medical director, you can get it done. If in El Paso you just want to give immunizations, but in San Antonio we want to look at patient navigation, which is a huge part of what a mobile integrated healthcare system is, in my opinion, but there's lots of opinions in here. So you don't need to wait. You don't need to wait for an advanced practice. You don't need to wait for a class. Whatever's going to work in your area, that's what a community paramedicine program is. So as far as that goes, advanced practice paramedics, I'm all for it. I would love to see something like that. That way we leave the rest of us alone if we don't want to do it. However, attaching that to community medicine, that's been my sticking point the whole time. Thank you. And Jay's done really good work, so if you haven't read his document, it's actually very good.
Thank you. Dudley?
I appreciate the timeline and laying it out. I would encourage that you involve the folks that you're going to need involved in 3 or 4 years as this comes to finality now. Don't wait. Because I'd hate to see us get down the road and a whole bunch of work put in, and then you bring in some operational folks or some medical directors who are like, no, we need, and all of a sudden we have to back up. So I'd get those folks involved in that working group now, and I'll start having our community health folks attend those meetings. We couldn't make the last one, but Jay will reach out to you and get that information. And then the other thing is, and I think I heard this, but I just want to make sure that it was clear. Or two things. Brian touched on one, and that is that I think one of the things that has made this successful in the communities where it's been successful is that it's been based upon the community in which it was done. And I appreciate the comments about this being a floor and that this being a baseline of knowledge, because I think that's important, and I think the more you can say that, the more comfortable people will become with this. But I would also encourage you to reach out, point two, to some of the other work that's been done. The International Roundtable on Community Paramedicine has done a lot of work. There's actually a curriculum, I think it's out of Minnesota, I'm sure you've seen it, that has some other things in it that are not medical-based but are people-based, and goes to the things like patient navigation and goes to the things that we probably need to teach paramedics if they're going to go out into people's houses by themselves without a partner, that we've never really touched on before, ethics and those type of things that we've never really touched on in our education, because more times than not we go out together in a herd. And this is usually in most models is not a herd of people going, it's a person going. And so there's other pieces of that education beyond clinical medicine that I think are critically important for the success of these programs that could span the different communities, no matter what a community decides to do. The stuff we're looking at is vastly different than a Fort Worth or a San Antonio, and we're a suburb of San Antonio, and our community needs are different than theirs. And so continue the work, and I appreciate that, and I would encourage you to reach out to those folks operationally, medical director, clinical guidance-wise now, and make sure, as hard as it's going to be, because they're saying 3 to 4 years, what do you mean I don't got that kind of time? But let's start rattling those cages and getting people plugged in now as best we can.
Good point.
Thank you, Doug.
Any other questions or comments? Direction?
Let me go over a couple of things, because people have kind of referenced that the group has done some outstanding work besides disease and epidemiology, looking at general components of disease, pathogen, disease transmission, disease prevention, acute as well as chronic, under epidemiology, evidence-based medicine. And I know when I read this the first time, that's just what stuck in my mind so much, is that we want to make sure that whatever we're putting out, because as we extend this practice, we want to make sure we're extending competency that goes with it, because we're going to have some people making some independent decisions. Not that we don't make them now, but we'll be making these independent decisions at a little bit higher level. And I think to make sure that we're using things that are proven, that are evidence-based, that aren't just the old Texas colloquial saying, well, that's how we do things around here. That's part of it, but when we have the evidence that goes with it and partnering with others for preventive health care, pathophys and chronic disease included almost everything: heart, stroke, respiratory, endocrine, GI, muscular, skeletal, bone, cancer and tumors, skin disease and disorders. Those are things in paramedic school. We just, the two things you always learn about skin is if it's wet, dry it; if it's dry, wet it. And this is going to go way beyond that, which is really, really great. Assessment of everybody throughout the spectrum, how we manage those, how we manage wound care, irrigation, decubitus ulcers, follow-up on AMI patients, CVA patients, major trauma, postpartum, high-risk newborn, additional surgery, immunizations, health screening, residential health and safety evaluation, which what Dudley was mentioning earlier is already here. Part of it is that how we practice communication skills. I don't know about you as providers, but I can tell you as educators, we have students who can't seem to communicate the way we need them to. They're great on tweeting each other, sitting right next to each other, but as far as having them talk to each other, so we're going to have to teach them how to talk to people and how to talk to patients and get information. So delivery methods, intentional on the group of trying to find other ways than just instructional lectures, looking at doing research assignments, looking at doing video viewing and reviewing, looking at high fidelity simulation where it's available, looking at presentation by students, looking at online, looking at telemedicine for our rural and frontier areas, so that this is available to them. And certainly in our rural and frontier areas, to me, this is just another tool to help them because they are so far out, and to give them an opportunity to have some of these folks around, I think would be great. evaluation psychomotor tools to help us evaluate what's going on, performance. We know that we've got to involve DME, durable medical equipment. We've got to involve people from hospital associations. So we can certainly accelerate the timeline as fast as it's allowed, but I think in order to get all these folks to the table multiple times for multiple input, and so that we do this right, the one thing I don't want is anyone saying, well, I didn't know or I didn't have a chance to. So if we can accelerate it and get it done, great. Mobile definitions, when you see this, will be mobile community health, and you'll see the term scope of practice, and I don't want anybody to think, well, wait a minute, we're a delegated practice. We're simply saying this is the maximum allowable limits of that practice at this base. The medical director will actually set that, because medical directors will have to set a scope of practice for this for his or her advanced practice folks, saying this is what I want you to do, this is what I don't want you to do. Looking at those high system users, trying to define those, who's enrolled, who's on the team. And I think when we look at some readmission avoidance, that within the first 30 days of a hospital discharge, that patient goes back, there's not a lot of money being passed around for that. So if they can monitor that patient progress and help avoid readmitting that patient by taking care of them in their home, I think this is a win-win for everyone. So my hat's off to you guys and the committee. Have we been able to, I know that they can email you, but Brett, do we have anything available that dishes that we can use for, or do we need to just do something Google on our own to store documents, to let people see things, to send us ideas? Yeah, we want to just drop, I just want to make sure if we do it on our own, here's what I'm thinking. If we're all involved in doing something in this committee on our own, I want to make sure we're not violating any Open Meetings Act by information flowing back and forth. I want to make sure if we can post that so the public also has access to it. It shouldn't just be us, it should be everybody. I just want to make sure that we're in accordance if we do something like that.
We'll have to run it up, whatever you do, we'll have to run it up the chain and legal and see. I can't answer that right off the top.
So, okay, so we'll ask for forgiveness versus permission?
But from a document standpoint, as long as it's not copyrighted protected,
Right.
you make it a part of your minutes, you can post it on your education link of GETAC
Right.
on our website.
Right.
So there's a way right there where you can put documents you want people to review.
Right.
That going back and forth dialogue, we'll have to check on that.
Yeah.
I don't know that we can do that, but maybe we can do it through some other avenue.
Yeah.
With one of the associations. Or
I just want to make sure that we're not violating anything. I don't want Jansky sending me another email saying you're close to doing something.
My understanding would be it had to be one-way
Yeah.
suggestions to you. If you respond back, then it's deliberation, and that becomes more of a problem.
Can we, though, not deliberate on documents? Example, I have the one from Southeast Texas. We're looking at theirs, I see something, and I want to go, hey, committee members, look at this and tell me if you think this looks right. And they want to come back and go, yeah, no, whatever. If we take no action on that, but then bring that back here and say, we've been able to cover this ground, because everybody knows that's why we meet between meetings. Because in an hour and a half, we can't tackle anything and get it done. So we meet between. Even trying to compress some more time together, if we're able to pass those back and forth, make no decision whatsoever, bring it back here. If I'm not mistaken, that's still against Open Meetings Act, isn't it?
Because even though you're not making a decision, you're making a decision. You're influencing a possible vote in the future from this additional information, and that needs to be done in a public forum.
Okay.
You can send it out and say, review this. We're going to talk about the next meeting, those kind of things, but when you have deliberation going back and forth, and it has been explained to me, it is simple as two people emailing each other saying, hey, what do you think? It's kind of stupid, isn't it? You're deliberating, and that becomes the problem.
Okay.
What about like a webinar? The same thing?
A webinar, we publicly announce that, and we post it, and anybody can sit in on it and that kind of stuff. As long as it's in a public forum, you're okay. It's when it's one-to-one or a couple of ones, and it's that deliberation, which will influence a future vote or direction or decision.
Will that webinar have to be posted 30 days before its meeting?
You know, I'm not 100% certain on that. I don't. Our meetings now are what, two weeks ahead of time. It has to be posted. It's like 10 days or 7 days, something like that. But it takes a little bit. We say I think 2 weeks because it takes that long to get it into the process, so it gets printed and all that kind of stuff. So we can work with you on the timeline.
Okay. I mean, if we can accelerate some of this and get some things done and get some information out there, because I want everyone to be able to see it. I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we're not violating open meetings. If we use Dropbox outside, the problem with Dropbox outside is if members of this committee are communicating, even through Dropbox, that could be a problem.
Right.
So just, again, sometimes I think when we look at timeline of 3 to 5 years, for us to have enough public time to do this, if we could use some other methods, yeah, we could cut that time down greatly. But in order to get everybody involved, I just want to make sure, because I've had some discussion with some people saying, why don't we do these things? And I'm like, I think I know the answer why, but just wanted to hear it. Because if we could, boy, if we could use Dropbox to move some things back and forth quickly, that would really help. But if we can't.
We'll research it and get back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joe.
And, you know, 3 years, do the simple math. An hour and a half meeting, 4 times a year. Over 3 years, we're talking 12 and 8, so.
That'll be plenty.
But
18
meanwhile, the
hours.
market's changing.
Yeah.
The market, the needs are changing, and we're.
Yeah.
We fully understand, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we have to have the 6-hour, 8-hour meetings between meetings so we can get it done. So, anyhow, we will get this document posted ASAP. I think there's a lot of great work in it. Any comments that you guys have? Jay, it's jaycloudlp@gmail? Okay.
JayCloudLP@gmail.com. And if you've previously been communicating with me, or sending me email, please send it again. I am changing jobs and I'm losing one email account, but that Gmail account will still be good. So.
Okay. So jaycloud, JayCloudLP@gmail.com. I'll make sure we said that loud and proud and on the record. So as we continue to go, involvement, please, we ask for everyone who has any comment, and we've had some people bring up some things that the committee hadn't thought about, and we were able to go back and kind of research those and put those in. Dish has been real great about giving us information that we need to move forward. So we will certainly, and if we can not violate Open Meetings Act, yet move some documents around quicker and get information back, and if we need to use. If you'll also check on webinars and go to meeting, if those have to be posted 30 days out, that's what kills us.
Sure.
Is that 30-day posting to try to get it done. By then, it's almost time for the next meeting. So that would be great. Committee, any more comment on community health, paramedic, mobile, integrated health? Any more public comment? Okay. Thank you very, very much. Let's move to strategic plan. Charlie, if you can go to page 23, down at the bottom right-hand corner. During our July 18th meeting, we also took a look at the strategic plan for us was on page 23 and 24 of the EMS and trauma system strategic plan. And it was really interesting because as we go back and read this document, I just started laughing because I was looking at things like Texas Department of Health. When CCMP is finished, lots of things that we've done and probably, at some point should have reviewed this a little bit sooner, but it is up to us. And in 2001, GETAC mandate, House Bill 2446 regarding EMS, Section 2 of this bill said that we needed to make sure we assess the need for emergency medical care all over the state, but in rural areas, develop a strategic plan for redefining educational requirements for certification. And we have been working on those, but I think some of those that we've actually finished. So if you can go to the next page, Starla, because that's actually just the first one, the meat of this that was done. Is this one of you telling me something I did wrong that I needed to do differently? Yes, thank you. Strategic plan, if you come down to the first objective, I'm sorry, yeah, let's do the objectives first. We're going to do this one backwards. It'll make sense. Where it says create, implement, and maintain under objectives an effective EMS system, we took out create, implement, and maintain because that's already done, and we're going to advocate for an effective EMS education system that uses innovative processes. The group wanted to remove the parenthetical webcast telemedicine patient sim, not to tell people how, but have them to do it any way that they wanted. What we wanted to make sure and leave in to address individual needs, such as shift workers for that one, initial continuing education for EMS certificates, licensees provided in all areas of the state, and to ensure that alterations in expectations of EMS personnel provide care with adequate notice. We did make a couple of changes there. Number 2, there was actually an insert in number 2. We didn't like the word alteration in number 2. We wanted to make sure that any changes in there would be preceded by adequate notice and prep. Under strategic plan, A was deleted. Texas Department of Health Bureau of Emergency Management will monitor and implement national registry testing and report to GETAC immediately on a quarterly basis. We already do that. We haven't had national registry test scores reported to us in a while, but I think that's available online. So as far as us having to report that, because at one point it wasn't available to the public. Now it is available to the public, so the group decided that we should remove strategy A. B, C, and D, as you can see, GETAC with stakeholder input would review and make recommendations regarding the scope of practice, curriculum, educational process for EMT intermediate by 10-104. Wow, does that seem like a long time ago? Wow. Same thing in B, in C rather, but related to ECAs, and then the same thing in D, which related to licensed medic. To change those and say we'll review and make recommendations regarding scope of practice, curriculum, education standards, and educational process for Texas recognized emergency medical personnel. So instead of having to have 3 objectives, strategies rather, that one was combined into 1. E, GETAC with stakeholder input will review and consider the adoption of principles of national EMS education practice blueprint by 10-104. That has been done. So we basically deleted strategies A and E and combined B, C, and D into 1. Amen. Amen. Just like that.
Wake up.
On objective 2, I misstated something. We were going where it says ensure that alterations in expectation EMS personnel to provide health care services are preceded by adequate notice and preparation. Excuse me. Committee wanted to input, promote cooperation between education industry to provide adequate recommendation regarding progression in the standard of care. So that would change objective number 2 to read, promote cooperation between education and industry to provide adequate recommendations regarding progression in the standard of care. Wanted to add objective number 3, or add one, make it number 3, and that is foster forward momentum in education using evidence-based medicine. I think everybody here, even though I'm doing most of the talking today, I will tell you, the July 18th meeting, this group was pretty rowdy. And that was one that came up that everybody was just on board with, saying it's time for us to go to evidence-based medicine. So we'd like to add that as part of our objectives. And then also add under strategies, we'll review and compile a list of pertinent evidence-based literature as it relates to EMS and make it available to the public. We don't live in silos anymore. We kind of sometimes still think we do, but we really, really don't. And as Dudley said earlier, we have a more, that the public is involved, but let me tell you, we have a more involved public than ever because of the internet. There are things that we used to not know that we have to know. And I'll give you one example. It's very difficult for you to go to a home now that someone doesn't already have an idea of what's wrong with them. They call you because they can't handle it, okay? You all remember the time when we didn't see commercials on pharmacology on TV? We just didn't see it. It just wasn't there. And now every time, and they always do it right at the dinner hour. Hi, I need this, I need that, I've got this, here's this drug, ask your doctor about this, blah, 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 blah. We have to make sure that our students are exposed to that, because that's some evidence-based now that people are looking at, saying, hi, well, can I take this, or why can't I take that, or I've been taking this. And I think there was a time, if you just taught pharmacology without teaching pharmacodynamics and everything that goes with it, you're missing out, because these students have to know that. So we're looking at a lot of things that people already become aware of as patients. And as personnel, as educators, and as providers, and as students, we have to make sure that we're exposing them to what is evidence-based, to what the public actually knows, because they know a lot more than they did. So we feel like some of this we need to make available to the public so that they're making informed decisions and informed choices. Now, EMS is probably the only healthcare occupation, initially anyway, that you get to pick your own doctor. You can pick your own doctor. When you dial 911, it's luck of the draw. You don't get to pick your EMT. You don't get to pick your medic. So we want to make sure those that are out there are as competent as possible. And giving, when you're beholden to the public and they might ask, you really want to make sure that you can answer those questions. Back up in paragraph 1, 2, 3, it says, as indicated from 45 comments, that section was removed from this document, still leaving in the issues and problems that we try to work on and need to do probably a little bit better job, because some of those opportunities seem to be limited by distance to some of the major training centers in our frontier and rural areas, as we will continue to try to look for some innovative ways to get those done. And also in the paragraph before that, all of the specialty course listings, we just took those out. Everybody knows what those are when we talk about programs providing, because all those are evidence-based programs that are fairly well vetted that everybody takes. Committee, did I leave anything out? Trying to take notes and do this at the same time. I think we got it all. Dr. Villers, I know you were there paying particular attention. Did we miss anything? So, if we take out the specialty courses, remove that whole sentence indicated from the 45 comments gathered during the public hearing, add the second strategy, or revise the second strategy to review and compile a list of pertinent evidence-based literature as it relates to EMS and make it available to the public. We would also add the third objective, foster forward momentum in education using evidence-based medicine. Delete strategy A, B, C, and D were combined to make recommendations regarding scope of practice, curriculum, educational standards, and educational process. Bless you 3 times. Don't put that in there. For Texas recognized emergency medical service personnel, deleted E and added advocate for effective and omitted the parenthetical remarks there, and promote cooperation between education and industry to provide adequate recommendations regarding progression in the standard of care. Those were the changes that the committee made on July 18th. Committee, do you still like them? You want to make further changes, additions, deletions? No? Any public comment on those?
Just one thing.
Come on up, Leon.
If you're going to change the document, you might as well change basic trauma life support to ITLS and then after trauma life support. Taking all that out.
We took that whole section's gone.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah, all of it.
And you don't have to change it.
Thank you, Leon. I'm sorry. Yeah, to omit all of the specialty course listings, just all of them, because they just kind of get. We live on initials. Yeah. We did leave in down at the bottom of paragraph 2 where it says the last sentence. Setting for EMS education include hospitals, community colleges, universities, tech centers, private institutions, and fire and EMS departments. We wanted to make sure that we covered the gamut rather on that one. Any other public comment? Good morning.
Morning. I'm Sam Vance. I'm the EMS for Children Program Manager. Just to give you as a resource while you're talking about evidence-based guidelines, the National Association of State EMS Officials will be releasing their model clinical EMS guidelines in October of this year. And those guidelines cover about 40 different clinical situations, and it provides guidance for EMS medical directors and as educators for educating paramedic students. The guidelines are mainly consensus-based, but in situations where there was an existing guideline created by the National Pre-Hospital Evidence-Based Guideline Model Process, which is endorsed by the Federal Interagency Committee on EMS, FICOMS, and the National EMS Advisory Council, or NEMSAC, they created several evidence-based guidelines in the resource, and those include airway management, allergic reactions, asthma, bronchiolitis, croup, pain management, seizure, shock, including external hemorrhage control, and spinal care. So
Will you email that document to me, or give me the link?
I will.
Okay, great. And I'll get it to them, and we won't talk back and forth and violate any Open Meetings Act when we do.
Sure.
Great. Thanks, Sam.
Judy, if you go to the newsletter that we put out, there's a link to
Is
the
it there?
Washington update, and
Okay.
it's in there.
Okay, it's in there.
And that is updated every time one comes out.
So it's in the newsletter under,
It's under links.
Okay.
And it's called the Washington Update, which links you to the National Association of State EMS Officials web
okay.
page.
So it's under links and then look for Washington.
Yep.
Update. Okay, great. Any more public comment? Okay. Committee, need a motion to move these changes forward to GETAC into the trauma committee.
Second.
Made and second. Discussion? None. Public comment? None. All those in favor sign of aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay. We'll move these to GETAC and to Jory so that they have those approved and moved forward by this committee. I don't think we need to move anything else. We have all the community health things. You have Jay's contact information. Jay, have you set, I don't think you have another another task force meeting, have you?
Not yet. I'm waiting to, right now I need to wait to hear back about things like webinars, because Kelly and I were talking about putting on a webinar. And if we aren't going to be able to have a little bit of an exchange, we're going to have to come up with a different way to do it.
A webinar would be perfect.
Yeah.
Sure. And I've already emailed our legal department to get an answer, so hopefully I'll have an answer for you sometime today.
Great. Great.
You're not Don Jansky. Okay. Let me also tell you too, committee, we have, if you guys remember, a few years ago working on accreditation. This group traveled all over the state, and I mean all over, from El Paso to Tyler to North Texas to Corpus Christi to you name it. We have had a request come in from the Panhandle RAC, Trauma Service Area A, where they are actually looking and have asked us to, when we can, make our way to them for some assistance, for some education needs. So I just need the committee to throw that in the back of their mind. I know it won't be our next work group meeting. Then next meeting is the EMS conference. Then our next work group meeting will probably be January. So it will probably be next year. Dustin, are you in the house? Okay, just wanted to make sure that we'll get there as fast as we can. Just looking at some, he and I talked the other day, and I asked him, I said, if you can just get us a list of things you need help with. And I know that meeting in Austin is central. I know it's easier, but we've traveled when people have asked, and they've asked us to come and help and listen and make some changes and give them whatever we have. And I will tell you, with the group that we had and have and will have, I know will be dedicated people who will continue to do that. I mean, I can tell you people aren't here. Scott Mitchell, Jeff McDonald's here, Dr. Malone, people on this group, and people who are not officially on this group but just are a part of it. I remember flying to El Paso, and that was a day AT&T said I've flown out of my range and shut my texting off for months because I flew out of my range. But you know, it was nice to have someone who does site visits there. It was nice to have medical directors there. It was nice to have educators there. It was nice to find out what these people's needs are, so we bring those resources with us, so that if you need some accreditation help, we've got somebody here who does site visits to give you info. You need some education stuff, we've got it here. If it was problems with outside agencies, how can we help? Contacts that we have to try to facilitate that for you. So it might take us a little bit to actually get to you, but if you need something, just send me an email and we'll try to facilitate it as fast as we can. I know during the four and a half years that we worked on accreditation, I think there was somewhere around 24, 25 different accreditation workshops that people associated with this committee and on this committee did to help you. So if you need it, just let us know and we'll start setting it up, but just know that it might take a few minutes. Mr. Tayers, you told me I could pull one off the committee, off the agenda for the future?
Correct.
Okay. What about 2?
Absolutely. The horse is dead.
Okay. Horse is dead. Number 3 will be on there forever, a while anyway. Number 4, do we need to review state strategic plan and consider recommendations for revision for us? I guess it would be a October meeting. Is there anything we need to do? Is this going to come back to us? I guess that's what I'm asking.
You're making his recommendation to GETAC, so it'll be up to chair there to tell you if they want you to do something else.
Yeah. So I guess
this isn't us. This is them coming to this committee. So I would say after you get the report, see if it's received as is. If you do anything else, then we'll have a discussion.
All right. Committee members' announcements.
Did we need to revisit that question, Kelly?
February meeting, it was mentioned to the Education Committee that there was going to be an online medical director course that was going to be offered free to medical directors. Do we have a status update on that? I have quite a few doctors asking
You're
me.
reading my notes, aren't you? Because I said you're under announcements, medical director's course. If you go out front to the front table, the course is done, and it's free of charge for the medical directors or anyone else in Texas who's interested in that knowledge. There's a handout out front that tells you how to do it. It'll start September 1st, go to August 31st of next year, and it is free of charge. And this will meet the requirements for a medical director under TMB. Yeah, it's free of charge for 1 year. After that, there is a charge for it.
She asked, are there continuing education credits for that CME?
I don't know. You mean, are you talking for the doctors?
Yes.
Or,
Yeah.
they will get a certificate. It is approved by ASAP and those guys. So my initial guess is yes, but I can't say that for sure.
Okay.
And then we should strongly consider offering our EMS colleagues credit as well for taking the course. I think it's important for them to know what we're supposed to be doing.
Sure.
That way they can hold us accountable.
It really was truly just approved in final format this week. We've been working back and forth on Chapter 8, which is all on Texas. And there were several doctors that have been assisting me with that. So we'll look at it internally, and you get a certificate upon completion from an outside source saying you completed the course. And we'll see if we can assign some kind of continuing education hours to it.
Okay, yeah.
The course, I think in total, it's probably going to take 2.5, 3 hours to take it all, and you can stop and start at any time, and it gives you a really national viewpoint all the way down to a local viewpoint.
And everybody knows if it's approved for physicians, it's automatically approved for EMS, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But I can't stress enough, it is free for 1 year, and I believe it'll go up to about $300 to take the course, or it could be even more. I'm not exactly sure what the cost is.
It'll be free from a year. What's the starting date?
September 1st of this year.
So September 1 this year through September 1 next year, free. Correct. After that, $300.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you have to go on and register and all that, and they know if you're coming from Texas, it'll waive the fee.
$100 an hour, huh?
I'm sorry?
It'll be $100 an hour pretty much after September
Yeah, I'm pretty
next
sure
year.
it's 300 or more, more
Okay.
dollars. I forget exactly how many it is, but it's not a couple bucks.
Okay. Outstanding.
And from a doctor standpoint, it is recognized by many states nationally, so you'll be able to take it with you. Not that we want to lose any doctors in Texas, but if you do decide to go someplace else, it's a document you can take with you.
Is there an ethics component in there?
Oh, man.
I'm asking because, Dr. Redliff, if I'm not mistaken, you all have to have X number of hours or an hour. Is it, what is it, 1 hour?
1 or 2, right,
Yeah,
of
of
ethics.
ethics. So I'm just asking, was there an hour of ethics?
Well,
in there?
you know, I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And I didn't print it out.
Okay.
Oh. Can you bring up the course?
Committee members' announcements.
Jody, I have one.
Yeah.
If just an announcement, if anybody's, it's a short notice, somewhat short notice, but if you're interested in influencing the federal oversight of EMS education, the education agenda for the future is open for public comment through September the 5th. It's a quick read. It's only about 62 pages. The last 4 or 5 pages really does it. It just kind of is a reference material. So if you want to go out and look at it, ems.gov, you can see it on the right-hand side, latest news. You can open it up. You have an opportunity to comment on the education agenda, which was formerly named EMS Education Agenda for the Future. They're changing it to the Education Agenda. And NIMSAC will actually vote on it September 9th and 10th. It's mostly minor changes, just changing words, getting rid of agenda for the future, some of that stuff. But I encourage everyone to go out and read it because that's the direction the feds are going as far as funding and supporting EMS on a federal level.
Good information. Thank you. Committee members, any other announcements? Public comment? Any other public announcements?
Judy,
Yes.
has nothing to do with education, but
Okay.
something we're all really interested in. The hotel has put up a buffet today for lunch for people that are going to be around. If you were here yesterday, you knew it was a nightmare. We had to wait forever, and they have learned from that. And so there's a buffet, there's a menu out there. What's on that buffet at the front table?
Outstanding. Outstanding. Agenda.
Public comment
Come on.
about education.
Yes, ma'am.
STEMI Texas is coming to.
Tell us who you are.
My name's Catherine Bissell. I'm with RACQ.
Okay.
And wanted to tell you about the STEMI Texas conference that's coming to Houston, October 15th, 16th, and 17th. We have 2 pre-day conferences. One of them includes ECG training by Tim Phelan. We'll have 6 hours of his training on ECG. We also have NCDR coming in and talking about Action Registry. And then we've got a 2-day conference, which includes poster sessions and fellow presentations. There are brochures out on the front table.
Is that on a link to that on the state's website? I keep doing this because if we had a central repository, of things, I love to support our own folks. We just have to know that it's there. Is there another way that we could put things like that or get them into the newsletter so that people would know? Because I think there's just so much good stuff going on out there that we just don't know about.
I know it's STEMI Texas 2014, but Jane, can we put this on the website? I know we can put it on the cardiac care website, but.
We can put a link to it. We can put educational program and just put a link over to it.
That would be great. That would be great. Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Send me the link, Kathy.
Any other public comment?
Jody, is that what you want everybody to do in the future? Is to send it to Jane to do a link? It sounded like you were trying to put all education around the state somewhere.
Yeah.
Jody, you get to repeat that question so that the people who watch.
Yeah. Kirsty, come on up. You were. I know.
Don't want to be on the television.
We want you on television.
Yeah. It's more than 10 pounds, let me tell you.
That's okay. Somebody told me I had a face for radio. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Okay. We'll be together then. I'm Christine Reeves. I'm the executive director at Hot Rack. What I heard you say, Jody, is you would like to be able to support all of our members and educational opportunities that are available across the state, but we don't really have a way to put them somewhere to gather them so we can look. So my question is, is what you're saying, or what I heard Jane say, is we would send our link to our conference website to her, and she would put it on the education for DSHS committee?
Is that available, Jane? Because what Christine.
Oh, you had to speak it to the mic too, if I have to.
No.
She hasn't.
If you send me the link, then we could put it on the education page, the education committee page, as far as what's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean that's okay. Yeah.
And that's something that I know we've been talking about trying to, because every meeting you come to, you'll find flyers out there, and you'll kind of go, man, I wish I'd known about this sooner, or I didn't know. And everyone says, well, all you have to do is go to our website. Well, for every agency in here, we have websites to look at. So if we could get to the point of sending a link so that if you've got something going on, we all go to one spot and we can go through that one spot and find and support the great programs that are out there. So, yeah.
And this is good timing because we could mention it this evening at Rack Chairs. I mean, I'm pretty confident I know when there's workshops going on in my area. So, I mean, I would be the one to send them forward, but I mean, that would be great. I mean, we get asked all the time, where's there a close, I need 5 more CEs and this or that, so.
Right. We'll talk about it.
I'll open comment it if I need to.
I knew I could count on you.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. I'm Kelly Harrell with Tech CMS, and we have a website, and I will put any kind of education up on it. Just send me the link. It's kharrell@tex-ems.com. And then we put education, we put jobs, and it's all free.
Say that one more time slowly.
K Harrell, HARRELL, tex-ems.com. And I'll be happy to put it up.
And, you know, I guess we can start, I'm not wanting to promote your website, I'm wanting to promote the location of educational opportunities.
Of course.
That just happened to be on your website.
Of course.
Was that legalese correct there? So I wasn't, okay,
That's-
good.
I felt no.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Next meeting date, guys, we need to do a workshop, obviously, in October.
17th, 24th.
24th won't work.
17th, 11th. Or 10th, I mean.
17th?
Or the 10th, either one.
10th is better.
10th is better? Dr. Villers, 10th work for you?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Salazar?
Let me check.
Okay, Mr. Creech?
Sure.
Okay. Dr. Radley? Mr. Cloud? Mr. Weller? Mr. Hayes?
Yeah.
Mr. Lemay?
That's good.
10th good, Jeff?
Good for me.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, October 10th, TBA on location. It'll be from 9 to 3 or 9 to 4, and we'll TBA the location. If you'll check the DISH's website 30 days before that date, so on September 10th, you'll take a look and we'll have that ready. Unless there's something just pressing, guys, this would give us an entire meeting to work on this document and not have to work on anything else. Is that okay with the committee members? Great. Mr. Salazar, that finally worked for you? Okay. Mr. Creech?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. That's it. Thank you all for all your hard work and all you do. Keep it up. Anything else? All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? We are adjourned.